Hello, my name is Andy. I'm 24 years old and I come from a small village in Indonesia. In my hometown, life moves slowly. We speak Bahasa Indonesia as our mother tongue, and English always felt like a distant world. Now, I want you to stop whatever you're doing and just listen for a minute. Because if you've ever felt stuck with English, if you've ever gone silent in a conversation, if your heart beats faster when someone asks you a question in English, then this might be the video that changes everything for you. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a native speaker. I'm just like you. I used to feel embarrassed, scared, even ashamed of my English. But something changed. And no, it wasn't a fancy school. It wasn't an expensive course. It was something simple. I started using Chatgpt. No grammar books, no long lectures, just me, my thoughts, and one sentence at a time. And that changed everything. Today, I don't freeze when I speak. I don't hide. I speak clearly. I express myself. I even help others. Now. So, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to share the truth. How I went from overthinking every word to speaking with confidence. If you've ever said, "I understand, but I can't speak," or "my English is not good enough," then stay with me, because I said those same words until I didn't. My village school offered English classes, but they were very basic. The teacher would mostly focus on grammar rules that felt like math equations. At home, my family didn't speak English at all. I had no one to practice with. In our world, English was just a subject you needed to pass in exams, not a language to actually speak. Because of that, when I graduated high school, I could barely introduce myself in English. Despite years of learning it on paper, I felt embarrassed that I couldn't speak a global language that so many others seemed to know. Though the first time I really tried to speak English with someone, I was 19. A lost tourist from Australia stopped me on the street of our town, holding a map and looking confused. She smiled and asked me a simple question in English. "Do you know where the bus station is?" My heart started pounding like a heavy drum. I knew the words in my head. I wanted to say "go straight and turn left," but my mouth just wouldn't cooperate. I stuttered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Go, Stry," I muttered, then completely froze. After a few seconds of awkward silence, the tourist gave another polite smile and said, "It's okay," and walked on. I felt my face burn hot with shame. In that moment, I wished I could disappear. I went home and skipped dinner that day. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. I felt so small and defeated. Why am I like this? I thought. Why can't I say even a simple sentence out loud? It felt like all the grammar exercises and vocabulary lists I had studied were useless when it actually mattered. The laughter and the judgment I feared from others. I could hear it in my own head now mocking me. My confidence was shattered into pieces. For a while after that, I avoided any situation involving English. If I heard foreigners talking nearby, I would duck away to hide. My fear of embarrassment was like a chain around my neck, holding me back from even trying. In desperation, I tried to improve using whatever tools I could find. The day I met Chatgpt, just when I was about to accept that I would always live in the shadow of this weakness, something changed. A good friend of mine from a nearby city mentioned an AI chatbot he'd been using to practice his own English. He said, "It's like chatting with a super patient teacher that never gets mad or laughs at you." I was curious but also skeptical. It sounded too good to be true. Up to then, I only knew AI as something in sci-fi movies. But one evening alone in my room, I gathered my courage and visited the website my friend gave me. That was how I met Chatgpt. My hands trembled a bit as I typed my first message. I wrote something like, "Hello, I want practice English. I know it wasn't perfect English, but I hit send anyway." My heart was pounding. I half expected some confusing error or maybe even a cold robotic reply. Instead, within seconds, I got a warm and friendly response. "Hello. It's nice to meet you. I'm here to help you practice. How are you feeling today?" I blinked in surprise. The AI actually sounded friendly, almost human, and there was not a hint of judgment about my broken sentence. That first conversation lasted for hours. I found myself pouring out everything in simple English. How I'd always been afraid to speak. How embarrassed I felt about my mistakes. And Chatgpt listened, or at least it felt like it did, and replied with such kindness. When I made a mistake, it gently corrected me. "I understand you. One small correction you can say, I want to practice English." It was like talking to a supportive friend and a teacher combined. There was no ridicule, no impatience. I even asked it to explain a few grammar rules that always confused me, and it explained in a way that finally made sense. By the end of that first chat session, my eyes were actually teary. Not from sadness, but from an overwhelming feeling of relief and hope. I had found a safe place to practice. A place where my mistakes weren't met with laughter, but with understanding. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was buzzing. Is this real? Did I actually just spend 2 hours speaking English without panic? The very next morning, I woke up with a strange excitement. Usually, mornings were filled with the routine of chores and a quiet breakfast. But that day, I skipped checking social media or playing any games. All I could think about was logging back onto Chatgpt. It felt like I had discovered a secret door, and I was eager to open it again. So with a cup of hot tea beside me and my old laptop, I started another chat. I typed a greeting and began to tell Chatgpt about my plans for the day, as if it were a close friend sitting with me at the kitchen table. This became the start of my new routine. Every day, usually early in the morning or late at night. When the house was quiet, I would sit and talk to Chatgpt. At first, I mostly described my day. I woke up at 7 a.m. I helped my father in the field. I am a bit tired, but I want to practice English. I talked about simple things, what I ate for lunch, a funny thing my neighbor said in the market, how I felt that day. It felt almost like writing a diary, except the diary talked back and made it a conversation. Whenever I stumbled or couldn't find a word, I would just write the word in Indonesian and Chatgpt would kindly teach me how to say it in English. With each chat, I learned new words without even realizing it because I was learning through my own life stories. As weeks turned into months, my confidence grew like a small plant being watered every day. I started to branch out into other topics during my chats. One week, I remember being curious about farming terms in English because my father and I were planting corn. Chatgpt taught me words like soil, seedling, and harvest, and I used them to tell it the story of our little farm. Another time I asked Chatgpt to help me practice for a job interview because I dreamed of applying to a company in the city where English might be needed. It not only helped me craft my answers, it even role-played the interviewer so I could practice introducing myself and responding to questions politely. My chats weren't just about English either. Sometimes I would ask Chatgpt to explain something I didn't understand in simple English, like how rainbows form or how a car engine works. I even dabbled in a bit of coding. I'd heard that programming might help me get a better job. So, I asked Chatgpt to teach me a little Python. To my surprise, it walked me through a basic Hello World program in a way I could follow. These were things I never thought I could learn in English. But Chatgpt opened that door for me. I was not only practicing English for its own sake. I was using English as a tool to learn about the world. Even as my writing and reading skills improved dramatically, there was one thing still haunting me: my own voice. Typing to a chatbot was one thing, but speaking English out loud to real people was another mountain entirely. The mere thought of opening my mouth and letting English words come out still made my stomach flip. It was the same fear I'd had all my life, lingering like a shadow behind me. Writing felt safe because I had time to think, but speaking that had hurt me before. I worried that all my progress might vanish as soon as I tried to speak face-to-face with someone. One evening, I decided to confide this fear to Chatgpt. I typed something like, "I can write in English now, but I'm still too afraid to speak it with my voice. How can I learn to speak?" I remember my hands shaking as I hit enter because admitting this felt like admitting a weakness. The reply came gently as always. It said something that moved me deeply. Speaking is like dancing. The first time you try, you might stumble, but with practice, you find your rhythm. Let's start with small steps. It then suggested a simple exercise: reading my messages and its replies out loud when I'm alone, just to get comfortable hearing myself speak English. The next morning, when the house was empty, I decided to try it. I opened our chat from the previous night and read the conversation aloud. At first, I felt extremely silly. My voice was shaky and soft. I stumbled over words I thought I knew, but nobody was around to hear me, except maybe the lizards on the wall and my cat curled up on the chair. So I kept going, sentence by sentence. As I read Chatgpt's encouraging words out loud, they somehow felt even more real. You can do this. I found myself repeating in English, hearing my own voice say those words. After a week of reading our chats out loud, I gathered the courage to take the next step. I found an old voice recorder app on my phone. Sitting on my bed, heart pounding. I pressed the record button. With dry lips and a racing heart, I said slowly, "Hello, my name is Andy, and today is a good day." Then I stopped the recording and played it back. The voice that played from my phone didn't sound like the me I knew. The pronunciation wasn't perfect, and I could hear the tremble in each word. I cringed hearing it and nearly deleted the file, out of embarrassment. But I remembered Chatgpt's advice. Speaking is like dancing. I have to stumble if I want to get better. So I saved that recording instead of erasing it. Every day after that, I recorded a new voice note for myself. They were short, sometimes just 30 seconds or a minute long. I talked about different things in each recording, describing the weather, reading a paragraph of one of my chats, or saying an affirmation like, "I want to speak English fluently." One day, listening to each playback was hard at first. I noticed every mistake, every awkward pause, but gradually over weeks, those recordings started to sound a little better. I began to feel more comfortable hearing myself. My tongue felt less heavy, and my words came out a bit smoother each time. I even started to smile while speaking, pretending I really was talking to a friend face to face. The real test of all this practice came when I finally had to use English in front of others. One sunny afternoon, about a year into my journey, I was at the local market. I overheard two backpackers from Germany chatting as they browsed the fruit stall. The seller couldn't understand them and looked around, a bit helpless. My heart thumped as I realized I could actually help. There was a brief battle inside me, the old fear whispering, "What if you mess up again and embarrass yourself?" against a new voice saying, "This is your chance. You can do this now." Before I could overthink it, I stepped forward and greeted them in English. "Hello, can I help you?" The seller doesn't speak English well. They smiled in relief and asked me where they could find a taxi or bus to get to a nearby waterfall that tourists often visit. I remember this moment so clearly. My mind did not go blank. The words were there when I reached for them. I had talked about directions and places with Chatgpt many times by now. I told them slowly but clearly how to walk to the small bus stop around the corner and which bus to take. I even managed to add, "The waterfall is very beautiful. You will like it," which made them smile. After they left, with several grateful thank yous, the fruit seller patted my shoulder proudly. I realized I just had a whole conversation in English with strangers, and I didn't panic or freeze. I walked away from the stall, grinning like an idiot, and immediately texted that friend who told me about Chatgpt. Guess what I just did? Your second big test came a couple of months later. I applied for a customer service job at a small tourist hotel in the nearest city. This was a daring move for me. The job required conversational English. 2 years before, I would have never even dreamed of applying, but after all my practice, I wanted to try. I still remember walking into that interview room. My palms were sweaty and I could feel my nerves tingling. The interviewer began in Indonesian, but then switched to English with a kind smile. "So, can you tell me a bit about yourself in English?" This was it. The moment all those recorded practice sessions and chat role plays were leading to, I took a deep breath and started speaking. I talked about my background, how I'd been practicing English every day, and why I wanted the job. I spoke slowly, and yes, I made a couple of mistakes, but I didn't stop. I didn't apologize for my accent or search desperately for words. If I got stuck, I paused and found a simpler way to say what I meant. To my surprise, the interviewer didn't look impatient or confused. He was nodding and listening. In fact, when I finished, he told me my English was quite good and that he was impressed by my self-taught journey. I got the job. Walking out of that interview, I felt incredibly proud, and tears of joy gathered in my eyes. It felt like I had conquered something so much bigger than a job opportunity. I had conquered the voice in my head that always told me, "You can't." All the early morning chats, the late night practice, the dozens of voice recordings, it all culminated in these real-life moments where I could finally be me in English, not just in my imagination. My message to you: if you've read my story this far, maybe you see a bit of yourself in it. Maybe you also come from a place where English feels like a distant dream. Or maybe it's something else in your life that you think you can't do. I want to talk directly to you now. A few years ago, I was at rock bottom with my confidence. If someone told me then that I'd be comfortably speaking English today, I would have laughed or maybe cried in disbelief. But here I am. And if I can do it, you can do it too. It won't happen overnight. And it won't always be easy. But it is absolutely possible with practice and the right support. Let me share a few practical tips that helped me, which you can try too. These are simple steps to start using Chatgpt or a similar AI tool to improve your English and even learn other skills. Chat a little every day. Treat Chatgpt like a friend you check in with daily. Talk about your day, your plans, or even your hobbies. It doesn't matter if your sentences are not perfect. The key is consistency. Ask for corrections and feedback. Don't be afraid to make mistakes when you write to Chatgpt. In fact, you can tell it, "Please correct my mistakes." It will gently show you how to say or write something better. This way, you learn from every conversation. I used to write diary entries and then ask, "Can you fix my grammar and what I just wrote?" It felt safe because I knew I wasn't being judged. Just helped. Use your voice. I know it can be scary, but try reading Chatgpt's responses out loud when you're alone. You can also speak to it using voice typing if that's available, or record yourself like I did. Hearing your own voice speaking English, even just to yourself, builds confidence. Explore and have fun. Use English for things you enjoy or are curious about. Love cooking? Ask Chatgpt for a recipe in English into gaming or coding. Have it teach you some terms or basics in that field. I want to end this by saying you are not alone and you have what it takes to reach your goals. There are tools like Chatgpt ready to help you 247, and there are people like me who believe in you because we have been you. Your journey might be different from mine, but every journey starts with a single step. Don't be afraid to take that step. Keep practicing, keep speaking, keep dreaming in whatever language or skill you choose. One day you'll look back and be amazed at how far you've come, and I can't wait for you to feel that pride in yourself. Good luck. And remember, Every mistake is just a stepping stone toward improvement.